In a time where echo chambers are the norm and polarization feels inevitable, isn't it time a podcast take a different path? Going beyond the noise, beyond the headlines, into the ideas, values, and perspectives that shape our lives. Welcome to Middle Outcast. Real conversations for a fractured world. From the social to the political, the philosophical to the personal, Middle Out Podcast is about bridging divides and finding common ground. It's not about combat, it's about connection. Not about sound bites, it's about substance. So, whether you're here to challenge your assumptions, hear new stories, or simply search for that elusive middle ground, you've come to the right place. This is Middle Outcast. Now, here are your hosts, Myke Bates and Tom Rankin.
1, 2.
Check one.
December 12th, 2024, episode 1.
Thanks for having me on this podcast, Tom.
Middle Outcast. Let's talk a little bit. I gave you a little bit of an outline last night. Obviously, this is all a test. Whether this ever gets posted publicly, who knows?
Oh, it's getting posted publicly.
It'll get totally posted publicly, apparently. Watch my P's and Q's, maybe. Maybe don't watch them.
Half watch.
Half watch?
Half watch.
Yeah, so step 1 was to figure out some equipment and get some recording happening. We're currently recording. Yeah, so who are we? What do we want to do here? You start with you, Myke.
I'm trying to pull up the list. Got it. Who are we? I don't know. We're figuring that out. But in general, this is hopefully an effort to have conversations with people that we may not usually have conversations with. And hopefully the people that we're having conversations with haven't had conversations with folks like us before. And when I say conversations, of course, I mean real conversation, not just pleasantries, but actually getting into the minutia of how we view the world, how we view society, where we're at with politics, and whether or not we think that is a good place to be. I feel like a big thing that's missing is honest conversation and desire to kind of dig down and find objective facts and realities about this experience we're all in, and just want things to be better, I guess. And conversation is one really good way of doing that. And so, yeah, that's the idea behind this. Talk. Real talk.
I'm certainly very aligned with that. Obviously, for me, the motivation is the last couple of years of philosophical research and political research. This age of Trumpism, right? Not to bring, it's not obviously not the topic of all of this, but it is what motivated or inspired me at least to get involved and try to have these conversations, because I think we've clearly identified that there is a significant ideological split, or at least an apparent ideological split with people, and we're having a difficult time having conversations. This memeification of our discourse, right? So with social media, we've reverted to very short, not necessarily fully formed ideas and responses to questions, and we largely kind of reach for the grab bag of memes. I think that's significantly harmful to being able to create a just and fair society where we agree what our moral values are. And I'm just trying to find a way and to illustrate that there's a way to have conversations with people of different ideological standings in an effective way, not necessarily convincing other people of new ideas, but sharing perspectives.
Memeification is a great term, and I imagine it has a lot of applications. Its most obvious being, memes. We all know what internet memes are, right? It seems to be the retort of most that is reached for first. And I get it. It's easy. It packs a punch, either funny or like cutting, you know? And so it's so easy to reach for that. And in general, technology, as much as obviously we both love technology, is a big part of the problem. It's, it immediately shrunk the world and reduced it to slinging memes around. It's caused a lot of problems. And so I think so much of this friction we feel now in, society and politics and religion and stuff that we'll get deep into, hopefully talking about on this, whatever this show becomes. But it is so... It's an illusion. It feels like it's an illusion, right? Because it's so relative and real to all of us right now that it feels like, people are just like, it feels like we're in this simulation, right? It just feels so unfreaking real that you start to question, like, what is reality with this, right? And I think...
Oh, totally, yeah.
I think so much of
I've
it is...
doubted myself so much.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's the illusion. If you kind of... This is big picture stuff. Again, there'll probably be like several episodes dedicated to this type of topic. But if you kind of zoom out on the, the history of humankind and just look at all the civilizations that have come and gone, all the technologies that have come and gone, and the technology end is more recent, right? Like if
it's been explosive,
right? And it's at the very end of that timeline. And so, I mean, if you can look back in history and see repetition of societies and religions and all these things, they just come and they go. And to think that technology and the explosiveness it has arrived, to think that hasn't played a serious part in the world that we're experiencing now with all of its frictions would be silly.
Yeah, no, absolutely silly.
And therefore, it would seem, I think, that if we can identify the problems, it would be pretty easy then to zoom out just a little bit from those problems and figure out how to actually work around them. So, again, hopefully that's what we can dive into when we're talking to guests.
I think a further question that we'll have to get to is also what a we is. You and I haven't really talked a whole lot about the mechanics of how this thing will even necessarily work, right?
Yes.
We're totally flying by the seat of our pants here, where even last week or so, we almost ran out and did an interview with a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've got a conversation coming up in January, which is our first scheduled conversation.
Yeah. The thing that this test run is being executed for. Yes.
Right. Yes, the format, we still have to figure out what the format of that is going to be. I don't want it to feel debate-ish or combatish.
Yes.
And I worry that we'll look like we're 2-on-1.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So, in fact, the first conversation that we, tentatively have slated told him as much to hopefully bring a participant. Because I definitely don't want it feeling like a 2-on-1 thing. Don't even want it feel like a versus kind of thing at all. But rather, just dialogue. And sometimes one-on-one can feel a bit weird for people, I think.
Yeah.
So just having, or a 2-on-1 even worse, right? So, definitely am not terribly interested in a debate style either, insofar as like we know it, or the general public knows it, right? With like what they see on TV, and no, screw that. These are real conversations, long conversations, and hopefully very civil, spirited, certainly. But
Hopefully.
Right, and civil, absolutely. But I think it will be really cool to get feedback from the first guest, because we'll have an agenda just to at least have something, but I expect that we deviate from it pretty quick and start to hopefully feel out what other people want as well, because I don't even know if people have a desire for this. It's a theory that people do, and they should. Some people do, yes. So we'll see, but yes, who the hell knows where this is going?
I had a friend who posted on Facebook recently who really looking for exactly the same kind of thing. He made a statement that he's going to be very intentional about having conversations and kind of opening the door. And I think I'm going to do something similar. One of the things that I thought about doing was open up my Calendly and block off a spot every other week for anybody who wants to.
That's cool.
To snag a spot and choose a conversation, choose a topic.
I dig that.
Right? And we just meet and talk about whatever that thing is. I don't want to set any agenda. I just want to let people know what some of my ideas are or my position that I'm coming from. So that way, if they find that interesting or something they want to probe, they can know that I'm somebody they can come to and pick up a conversation.
Yes. Honest conversation. Love it. So the name, we kind of talked about that a little bit at the beginning. We're like, who are we? The name. So if you know me, you know that pretty much everything that comes out of my mouth is a reference to something, generally a TV show or a movie, and kind of stems out from there and then ends up relating to other things somehow. Anyways, Middle Out stems from the show Silicon Valley, so totally stole it, just from that. Talking about the Middle Out compression algorithm that gets created in the show, but the term actually is pretty illustrative, I think, of the way that I view the world, and I think Tom, very very similarly, I think can be painted for you as well, is that of all the ideas, right? You've got ideas that are on one side, you got ideas that are on the other side. Religious, not religious. Left wing, right wing, conservative, liberal, whatever, right? And with most things, the answer is always up the middle. Always. And that's where, if you look back in, through time and see who was leading in those moments, it's times where there's unification. So, and I think people have a bad idea about what that means. Doesn't mean you get everything. It means you get some of your stuff and then other stuff that you really don't care for or like at all. It's so simple. And if we would just start with that aspect, you hear people say all the time, we have more in common than we don't. It's absolutely true. It's a trite saying, but my God, if we get away from the, fantasy of all this bickering and friction and just start in the middle and work your way out.
Beautiful.
Come on, it's so simple. Why aren't we doing this?
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. I don't want to cut you off. I thought you were finishing up.
No, yeah.
It really segues into my thoughts as well, is that the media has done us a massive disservice over this last few decades, right? In that, I grew up thinking that the media, and you hear about journalists and news anchors, and their whole job is to report just the facts, right? In an unbiased manner. And we don't have any outlets really anymore that I think that I go to that are truly unbiased, right? No. Most of the major media outlets, Fox, MSNBC, CNN, all that stuff, they've got an agenda to sell, what's the word I'm looking for? Outrage. Right?
Yes.
Outrage
Drama.
sells.
Yes.
Outrage motivates people. It keeps people engaged and involved. Every time we think there's some kind of existential crisis, we pay attention, and they get paid for us to pay attention. So I think that their objectives are counter to what our needs are. And
yes,
that's why I think this is the kind of media that needs to be out there. People hopefully will gravitate toward real conversations about controversial topics, and we can kick traditional media down the road.
So freaking true, yes, and that goes straight back to honest conversation. Media is media, whatever. Yes, the CNNs, the Foxes, the MSNBCs, they are not interested in honest conversation. Those anchors individually, personally, maybe, but the networks, no. They're there just to keep you watching, just to see those commercials, just to get those ads. And that, again, is that illusion that in our relative, like, existence, it feels like it's impossible. And it's just this force that's just there. But if you zoom out just a bit, it wasn't ever there. It's new. And it feels like it's impossible to escape, but just like you said, kicking it down the road is exactly what needs to happen, because holy cow, just as much as, we're scrolling our phones all the time or whatever, it's easy to think you are not, addicted to technology and whatever, like, and for all intents and purposes, we're not, but it's become so normalized that this kind of media consumption just feels like it's instantly baked in to this experience, and it's not, and it needs to be rid of, damn it.
Well, there are kids that's all they've ever experienced.
I know.
Right?
Yep.
They don't remember the days, when I grabbed my bike in the morning, I was gone all day, playing at the river, playing in the woods, playing with friends in the parks. Mm-hmm. Showed back up at night when it was time for dinner.
Yep.
Right? They don't have, I don't think they have those experiences.
No, certainly not. Not that I've experienced. So I think I was, probably one of the generations last experiencing,
right, that makes sense.
That. I feel a little bit like a freaking boomer. These kids aren't on their bikes, but no, it is absolutely true. I mean, yeah, what a different world. And how quickly it changed, and we'll talk about that stuff later, I'm sure, because that's a huge topic unto itself.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you think, here's a topic that I'll want to bring up. So maybe we'll segue into the next question. Topics.
Topics.
What are some of the core topics that you want to discuss? I don't want to limit necessarily the topics, because I think anybody that we engage, it will likely be something that hopefully is somewhat controversial and that we can explore. So I don't want to necessarily limit, but I certainly have an affinity for a few topics. What about you? What are some of your affinities? What things do you think are going to be the best things to discuss?
Well, we probably share very similar ones, and we've kind of mentioned many of them already. And I'd be really curious to know some of your angles. But aside from topics in general, one thing that I'm curious about is, I don't know when, how, you find this weave properly, but really tying in people's the weave. I've got a wide weave, but getting people's stories and knowing about them, is really part of these conversations. Not that we have to, get a whole thesis or whatever, but that's a piece that's always missing in these conversations. Is who are you? What makes you tick? What? In general, what are your values? What do you, who are you? Yeah. And just like we asked at the top of this, who are we in this? Let's try starting there with people maybe before we dive into it. Put some human element to it.
Well, I love what you said there. Who are we, right? Because it just struck me when you said it that way, because that is kind of the question, right? Is we want to bring people together so that we can discover who are we together.
Absolutely.
Versus who are we separated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Love that. Love it.
Hell yeah.
I don't have any guests, any ideal guests that I put on my list, but I thought it was a good thought starter for, if you look down the road, maybe 6 months, a year, 5 years, who are some of the guests that you think are ideal?
Well, this is not exciting necessarily, but just people.
I know, that's exactly what I was just thinking too. It's I don't necessarily want the Neil deGrasse Tysons and the things like that. I want it to be real.
Exactly. Yes. No, that's the big thing. Is that's the conversation that's missing every time we look to any media. It's talking heads. It's personalities. That are having these. And even doing this right now, even recording this, I feel stupid. Who the hell are we? We're just sitting here recording a podcast on this silly microphone in our office. No, I just want real people having conversations. Eventually, it would be cool. The grand vision, right, for this sort of thing, if indeed it surpasses, 10 listeners, our friends and family, would be that it's not this show necessarily that grows. It's just the idea that this program is bringing starts to spread. And that happens by bringing it to everyday people. And not just your talking heads.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable talking about, being uncomfortable doing this, right? I feel like I just called out Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, yes.
So, I hate that guy. No, I love Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes, please come to our office. And
we would not turn you over.
Yeah, not in a million years. Are you kidding me? No, it would be amazing to talk to big people. But that's obviously not the goal of this, not the design of this.
Yeah, I want people who potentially gravitate toward this, I want them to think of this as real, legit. So, reality podcast, right?
Yes, right.
Reality TV, which I think is actually what has destroyed our country, but we'll get back to that someday.
Exactly.
I have a couple of friends. I have, a few friends that I think actually I would very much be interested in kind of interviewing with this. Cody Cash is a brilliant guy, has his PhD in philosophy. And Patrick McWhirter are some good friends of mine that also have thoughts. One of the things that I hope to do with this is to inspire people to get engaged. Mm-hmm. I think that coalition building is something that we have to start in order to advocate for our beliefs. And I actually think this needs to happen on both sides, even though I think we're the underdog in this coalition space, because I think that the religious organizations are kind of heavily leaning toward the right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's already a built-in coalition there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Great. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about goals. Goals was the next thing on the list. Short-term goals, long-term goals, and then at the end of that, the punctuation on the end is, what is the vision of success for each of those terms, like short-term and long-term? What's a short-term vision of success and a long-term vision?
So in my head, short-term success would look like getting 2 episodes, not 1, 2.
Specific.
Yep. Just episodes in the can, so to speak. So ones that are not us, like with external guests.
Totally cool.
2 of them out and published. I don't know, likely through all the the podcast dealios. Not just, hey, it's on YouTube, but it's on iTunes. It's on whatever podcasting app you like to use. It's on there. So yes, that would be short term for me. I think if you can get 2 things like that going, and it's been enjoyable and has received any amount of traction, that is enough to keep wanting to go. And so so that would be success. Long term, I don't know, I'm bad at that. But long term, I suppose, would be, reaching 100 people that subscribed to, and whatever. I don't know. I suppose that's a marker of okay, this continued traction. Now we can actually decide, what does the broader vision of this look like? Yeah. Because there's real tangible things to make real decisions with. What about you?
I'm fully aligned with your short term. Absolutely. I think 2 is great. It would feel like success. This feels like success. Mm-hmm. I could walk away. I mean, if we were to walk away, even having done this, I feel successful in that we kind of kick the can forward. I think two sessions recorded and pushed out would be a great marker of a short term success.
This has been the Middle Outcast. Real conversations for a fractured world. With echo chambers being the norm and polarization being inevitable, we go beyond the noise, beyond the headlines. We have real, raw conversations that matter. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. Remember, you can find the show on all the major podcasting platforms. Plus, find even more at our website at middleoutcast.com. Remember, there's a lot more than what's on the surface, and that's why we're here. See you next time on the Middle Out Podcast.